Hey guys, we have a special guest visiting us at the tavern today. You've seen him on Ring of Honor, NWA, New Japan, the Beer City Bruiser. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourselves?
Man, we're doing okay. I know Mike's dealing with some weather over there in Chicago, but
it's beautiful.
Man, so we appreciate you stopping by. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're excited to talk to you. What's been going on in the world of Beer City Bruiser, man?
Nothing much. We just got done with the ROH Final Battle, end of an era pay-per-view. So I actually literally just got home Monday.
Hell of a show. Congrats, guys.
It
was beautiful, man. I was sitting on the couch watching it and had an absolute blast and just really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, it was real bittersweet, because we don't really know what the future is after April. So, I didn't say goodbye to anybody. It was more of a see you later because you get so close to everybody. I spent the last 7 years with the company and just you become tight with these guys, and girls, and you just become like family. And that's the thing that I'm going to miss the most, I think, is not going to work every day and seeing that and having that camaraderie and that brotherhood and that family and everything. And it was really cool because after Final Battle, the Ring of Honor rented us a suite at a casino for like all the guys and girls and their families and stuff like that. And we partied till like, I think 6 a.m, drinking beer and just having a good time. And hence why I was so exhausted Monday getting home and still trying to recover, but well worth it.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome, dude. Glad to hear that it was a nice moment for everybody. Like that.
That's
really
it was
cool,
a nice
man.
moment with everybody coming out to the ring at the end. Like it looked like it was a nice time, and you can tell that the camaraderie was there. But you wrestled for Ring of Honor for quite some time. So how are you feeling about the situation with them and them shuttering the doors for the time being?
I don't know how to feel. Like it'll be. I haven't been on the indies in last couple of years, so it'll be interesting to go back. I've done a couple indie shows since they've announced the hiatus, and it's really cool because the fans are welcoming me back to the indies with open arms, which is awesome. It's weird, having to reach out to promoters and stuff like that, and like I'm so used to nobody knowing who I am that now when I reach out, I'm like, oh, well, no, we know who you are, like, and then it just the business starts. But yeah, man, like it's some days I'm real excited about the future. Some days I'm worried about the future. When we first found out, you kind of take stock, like, okay, what can I do? Like, do I have the surgeries that I need that I've been putting off? Do I retire? Because I've been doing this for 22 years. Do I, what's the next chapter in my life? My wife and I sat down, and we weighed all the options, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this. They're just on hiatus right now. They're not closed forever. We're just gonna build the Final Battle, and my calendar's been filling up, all over the country, which is great. And I'm really excited to get back on the road and wrestle.
That's awesome. And it's what a time for indie wrestling right now too. I feel like it's, before the pandemic, it was as hot as it's ever been. And I feel like we're really getting back to that now.
Yeah, no, and it's great. Like everything opening up has been, awesome. Companies are drawing really well. And the fans, they want to be entertained. And it's so cool. Like I said, I never realized how well known I was until I got back on the indies, and it's like, oh yeah, like you guys know me, awesome. You remember me, which is kind of a good feeling. Since the pandemic, every indie show has been doing really well. Guys are out there are getting work. Guys and girls are getting work all over the place. There's companies that are coming out of the woodwork, like a GCW or AAW in Chicago has been around, but like GCW came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're doing fantastic. PWG's back, which is a great company. You got Beyond and Limitless, which are ruling the internet world. It's just crazy to see that these indie companies now are becoming this big thing and trying to fill that third spot that Ring of Honor left open.
Yeah. No, nothing beats homegrown wrestling, man.
Yeah, right.
It's some of the best stuff in the world. I do a couple stints over at Berwyn Championship Wrestling here in Chicago, and It's been great to be back in front of a crowd, seeing people. I used to do stuff a couple years ago, and I was out of the business for a little bit. I had kids and all that, but like mending back into it, it's been organic. It's been nice. It's been good to be back with people doing the shows and stuff like that. Like it's crazy to see everybody coming out of the woodwork and just being happy to be entertained by the wrestling scene. Super cool, man.
Yeah, when you're locked up for 18 months, man, you know, you want to get out and do stuff, you know. And I
Yeah.
know us as wrestlers, like, I remember the first pay-per-view back, I think half our roster injured themselves because we were going so hard, you know, because we finally had fans in front of us. So our TV tapings the next day, where we didn't have any fans, were kind of changed on the fly. I felt bad for Delirious, who books all the cards, because we all went hard in that pay-per-view, and I was one of them. You know, we all got, a bunch of us got injured just because we were doing stuff. We were so amped up and so full of adrenaline and stuff because there's people there, you know, that no one put the reins on. And you know, that was the worry with Final Battles. We were all worried we were going to go out and get hurt, but thankfully nobody got hurt. You know, knock on wood, wherever the guy was, you know, and everyone's okay.
That's good, man. I'm glad to hear that. Very happy to hear that.
And so now that, you know, Ring of Honor's, you know, you're back on the independent scene, when you look at the landscape of professional wrestling right now, is there any promotion that piques your interest that you would want to work for?
NWA. Brian Malonis and I have been talking to the NWA. We wrestled for him before the pandemic. We were supposed to be in the Crockett Cup before the pandemic. And they were literally our first call was the NWA. We both are like, hey, we fit in so well when we were there the first time. It's a great locker room. We know, like, I obviously broke in with Trevor Murdoch. He broke in with Aaron Stetson or Stevens. Damian Sandow, they broke in together. So it was like, these are two top guys on their roster. And when everything shut down, we reached out and we've been talking to NWA, and that's where we both want to go. We figure as the bouncers, like, that's a perfect fit is us with the NWA, and it keeps us in front of the fans on a national level. Yeah. I've also been talking to some of the New Japan crew, so that when that opens back up, hopefully I can get back to Japan and bring Brian with me, because I think two big, ugly, you know, American bastards could run roughshod in Japan, you know. And I did it once before. Man. I want to do it again.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
When you guys were there the first, what was it like working for Billy Corgan in NWA? Because I feel like before the pandemic, they were absolutely rolling, and I feel like they're getting back to that now. I know there was a little bit of a rough start to it, but now I feel like they are really catching their stride again.
Yeah, they're hitting on all cylinders. That last pay-per-view they had was amazing to watch, and you know, their TV tapings are going real good. They're back on YouTube again. Working for them before was awesome. It was so cool going to not center stage, but the old NWA building. And like Brian and I were worried, like, hey, we're Ring of Honor guys. We don't know how they're going to react to us. Cause the last couple Ring of Honor guys that were there, they got booed out of the building, and we were baby faces at the time. So it's like, you know, hopefully they don't boo us. And we walked out and we got this huge pop, and it was so cool. The Atlanta crowd welcomed us in, and you know, then we did the turn and we got to do stuff with Eddie Kingston and James Storm and Eli Drake. And it was awesome. And the locker room was so cool, so welcoming. We hung out with the Rock and Roll Express the whole weekend, you know, and became really good friends with them. To this day, we still talk to them. And it was awesome. And like I said, right when everything kind of got shut down, or, you know, the contracts are pulled right away, Brian and I both said NWA. Like, we both made a list of companies we want to work for, and number one on both our list was NWA. So we just want to be included in that. They're, you know, because like you said, they're catching their stride again, you know, and hopefully they bring the Crockett Cup back and we can be in that. Because, you know, as a kid that grew up, you know, the territory days, the Crockett Cup was the end all be all for tag teams.
Yeah, man.
And to put our name in that same history thing would be just awesome.
Oh yeah, no, that would be super cool, man. I used to work with Corgan, so it's awesome to see, you know, the love going. He's a smart guy, man. Really, really knows the business.
Yeah,
and I know it's awesome to see it coming from the talent. Like, I was a backstage kid, you know, I was putting the ring together and doing like commentary and all that stuff. So it's awesome to see it translate full and through, man. It's super cool. But I hope you guys get that, man. That's really awesome.
He's such an easy, approachable guy, you know.
Absolutely.
For the status that he has just in the music world. And then he came into wrestling, and he was real humble and real, like, out of all the men in the world, he could have this giant ego. You know, he's made a lot of money. He's won a bunch of Grammys, and you know, like, he could, but he's not. He's real humble. He's real down to earth. He's open to ideas. You know, if you have an idea, you pitch it to him. You know, he'll tell you no if he doesn't like it, but if he likes it, you know, and it was so cool to see a guy like that, as humble as we were, you know what I mean, and respecting what we do. You know, and it's fun to work with guys that like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he's ever taken a bump in his life, but he's sure treated us with a lot of respect. So
yeah, no, 100%. Like, it's cool that he's got the mind for the business on the back end too, because he really, really pays attention to things. He's got those small details he picks out. You know, it's fun watching him kind of tell the story before it goes out there to the ring and builds up. You know, so it's fun. I love it, man. It's super awesome, dude.
Yeah, and one of the things that you learn when you work for TV is it's called blocking. So you know where to stand and stuff like that. And we learned that in Ring of Honor, but then Billy would he has this vision in his head, so it's like, you two switch. I don't want you guys standing just switch. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, we didn't understand at the time, but then when you watch it back, you're like, oh, that makes sense. You know, he sees things that you don't see, which is great. Yeah. And I'm a student of the business, so I love learning all aspects.
Absolutely.
Before the hiatus of Ring of Honor, I was trying to do as much production and backstage stuff as I could, because I know that's gonna be the next step of my career. And you know, learning from guys like a Delirious or a Mark Brown who directs the Ring of Honor TV program, Zane, who's he's a cameraman, does a lot of pre-tapes and stuff like that, and then somebody like Billy, Dave Marquez, you know, guys like that, and it's awesome. You know, I love learning that kind of stuff and applying it.
Yeah. No, some of the best in the business to teach it too, you know, so it's cool. I'm all for it, man.
Yeah.
So let's take it back a little bit. So let's take it back all the way. So your early wrestling, have you always been a wrestling fan? And what was it? Your early memories and who were your guys growing up?
Man, since I've been 7 years old, I've been a wrestling fan. My uncle took me to a county fair, and AWA was there. And,
oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was a good card, but really hooked me as a fan was the main event. It was supposed to be Bruiser Brody versus Abdullah the Butcher, but Abby canceled for some reason. So instead, Stan Hansen was the champion at the time. So it was Bruiser Brody versus Stan Hansen. And somebody told me it's one of 7 times they wrestled just here in the States against each other. Yeah, and I got
crazy.
Yeah, I got to see that as a kid, and I was just obsessed with Bruiser Brody. He just became my obsession, and it's everything I wanted to do was about Brody, and it got me into tape trading and stuff. I know I'm dating myself, but that's how I got into tape trading. And because of my love for Japanese wrestling, the Puerto Rican wrestling, I was introduced to Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, another one of my guys, and you know, so I was obsessed with him. And then all of a sudden, it's I see Terry Bam Bam Gordy, which turns me into the Texas wrestling, and all of a sudden I see the Freebirds, and then, you know, then all of a sudden that gets me into the Mid Atlantic, and there's the Horsemen. It's oh my God, all this stuff's happening. Arn Anderson's there, and then as I get older, I got, you know, Bam Bam Bigelow, Scott Hall. All these guys are just, you know, an inspiration to me, and I take stuff and apply it in my stuff that I do nowadays. Obviously, being from Milwaukee, you know, I'd get yelled at if I didn't mention the Crusher. You know, but the Crusher had a huge influence on my character. You know, he was so fun to watch. And what was cool is he used to, about maybe a half hour from my house, there's a bar that he used to drink at, and my dad would take me down there just to see him and stuff. And it was so cool. You know, here's this larger than life man. You know, awesome. And then obviously learning the business from Harley Race. You know, I have so much respect and admiration for Harley, and not only everything he's done in wrestling, but everything that he's done for me personally.
Yeah. Man, there's so much in that statement. First of all, 7 years old, being Bruiser Brody.
And he had to be 100 feet tall to me, man. He was covered in blood and sweat. He came right past me and my uncle, and I looked at my uncle and went, yeah, this is it. I want to do this. This is, you know, and my uncle, who's a big wrestling fan, and to this day still watches me. You know, and I always tell him, you know, you're the reason that this is happening. That you're the reason that I'm here doing this. You know, so anytime I get him free tickets places, I always get him tickets, and he loves it. And he has a blast.
That's the best, man.
Good for him knowing that made such an impact on you. You know, hey, that's really cool, man. And then you mentioned also training with Harley Race. So, I mean, can you talk a little bit about the you know, training with Trevor Adonis and Harley Race, and what was it that made you want to transition from a fan into being a professional wrestler?
So when I started, it was actually really funny. My buddies and I, we'd always get together and watch pay-per-views, and we'd drink a bunch of beer and, you know, stuff like that, and we'd go out in the front yard and just beat the shit out of each other, because that's what you do, you know, when you're that age. And I had a guy at one of these parties because, you know, my neighbor's a professional wrestler. Did you ever think of that? I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, yeah, we just had a ring set up. They had the local news out there. and it was Trevor trying to teach these yarder kids, hey, you can become professionals. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So he took me to this guy's house. His name was Jet Bennett, and Jet and I to this day are still really good friends. And he gave me a list of names, and on there was like the Steel Domain, which was Ace Steel's company. That's where CM Punk and Colt Cabana came from. And the next name down was Trevor. So I called the Steel Domain because it's there in Chicago, and they were closed. That's when Ace and Danny were having their problems and stuff like that. So the next guy on the list was Trevor. And I went, and Trevor's like, all right, well, I'm not going to take all your money. So for $150, show up at this place. There's going to be a ring set up. We're going to do a 2-hour little fantasy camp, and then we'll take it from there. I'm like, all right. So I show up. I pay him my $150, and 2 hours turns into 4.5 hours. Wow. And I learned so much on that first day. And Trevor just wanted to keep teaching me because I just picked up on it. And Trevor goes, you're an idiot if you do not pursue this. And I was like, really? He's like, you are the most natural person I've worked with. You know, like, this is how much it costs. And that was the beginning of the training. And I get a couple of years in, and I started doing the Harley camps. And Harley kept telling me, why don't you move down here? Like, you're a natural at this. Like, you just need that fine tuning. And I have kids and stuff. I'm like, man, I don't know. And then I sat down with Trevor one night, and we drank a bottle of Jack, and he goes, you'd be an idiot not doing this. And so I packed up everything, and I moved to Missouri and trained under Harley. And I always tell everybody I went to grade school and high school with Trevor, but I went to college with Harley. And I knew all the in-ring stuff, but he taught me all the little things. He taught me the art of the promo. He taught me how to market myself, how to make the City Bruiser an actual like business. Like, you know, he taught me how to make money in wrestling, which a lot of schools nowadays don't teach, and they should. Yeah. He taught me how to talk to promoters. He taught me how to act at tryouts. He taught me how to talk to the bigger companies, you know, at the time, John Laurinaitis was in charge of WWE talent and stuff. And he is now, but back then he was, and Harley would bring him in. So we would have to talk to him, you know, and that's literally getting thrown into the fire. You know, you have to learn how to do all that.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
Because of all of that was how I was able to do so well and do all the extra work for WWE and do the stuff with Impact, and then I'll eventually get my job with Ring of Honor.
That's awesome, man. Harley's a great guy. I played poker with Harley in Vegas at a cauliflower convention. It was a quick it was a quick exchange, but he was on his little Vespa, and it was a little in his older years. But man, he was such a great, like, gentlemanly dude, and I was like in fear. I was a fan at the time. I was just like, bro, it's fucking Harley Race.
There's a great story at Cauliflower Alley of him and those little rascals going around.
Yeah.
So we went out there, and he had his little rascal because he couldn't move around too well. And Terry Funk had one too, and they ended up jousting, like driving towards each other and like smashing into stuff. And like Terry was sitting down, like signing his book because his book had just come out, and Harley, from across the room of the convention hall, comes peeling down his rascal and nails the table and pushes Terry against the wall. And he goes, what are you going to do? I got my rascal here. And he's like revving his rascal up. And it's like watching these two guys act like 10-year-old kids who's like known each other forever. You know, it was so fun. I was so happy I got to be a part of it.
Oh, that's so
great,
cool,
dude.
man.
Yeah.
That's the match we didn't know we needed, man. Race on their rascals, man.
Yeah.
So
I've done many a poker nights with Harley, so
That's
I know
great,
what
man.
you're talking about. Was he
cool.
drinking Bud Light at the time too?
He was. That's fucking awesome, man.
Bud Light or Scotch?
Yeah. I never caught him on the Scotch nights. It was usually the Bud Light
Man, how did your friends and family react when you told him, hey, I want to becoming a professional wrestler?
My parents hated it at first. My parents were not on board at first. They didn't come on board till a couple months into wrestling. I actually wrestled Honky Tonk Man at a fair called Ashipin, and this is like an outdoor fair, so there's like 2,000 or 3,000 people, and I'm wrestling Honky Tonk Man, and I at one point in time I roll out of the ring, and this little kid calls me a son of a bitch and throws a full Diet Coke can at my head. And I look at him like, where are your parents? And the mother's like, who do you think bought him the soda? And like everything gets all done, and my dad comes up with this big grin on his face and goes, "Man, you're so good at this. Those people hate your guts." And like he was a fan ever since. My mom slowly came around to it and became a fan. Like they were both at my first match, and I made my mom cry by selling DDT too much, which was the finish. You know, but she finally got on board, and it's funny because when Ring of Honor used to do their shows at Sam's Town in Vegas, my parents live in Arizona, so I have to drive for them. So they'd always drive in for these shows, and I'd get them tickets. And one time after the shows, Brian and I were trying to get back to our hotel room because our hotel room's right in the building, and my dad had said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine." And it happened to be the lady he was sitting next to in the crowd. And he was so proud that I'm his son and all that. He started talking me up, and she always wanted to meet me. So Brian and I come over, and my dad introduces us, and we're talking. And after like 2 or 3 minutes, okay, we're going to go to our room and stuff. Turn around. My dad had formed a line of people to meet Brian and I, and was ushering people in to meet us. And I'm like, "Dad, what are you doing?" He's like, "All these people, they want autographs and pictures and all that." I go, "Dad, they pay for this. Like, they have to pay for the meet and greet. This is like a meet and greet. Like, we get paid to do this." Like, he's like, but he was just so proud because he was so happy to see all these people coming to see me. He didn't understand that, "Dad, you're taking money out of my pocket. Like, I'll do it because you're my dad and all that. But like, you got to understand, this is my job. Like, this is how I make a living."
It sounds like
awesome.
maybe you needed to go take the class from Harley on how to make the money in the business.
But he was so proud and just so happy, and he's so used to me being on the indies and stuff that, at Ring of Honor, it was a pay-per-view and stuff, and it was like, "Dad, like, can't do that."
It's so awesome to have that. I mean, just that proud parent moment, man.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah,
man.
to this day, he still does
that
stuff. He has a stack of my 8x10s and just hands them out. And I'm like, "There you go, Dad. Just do what you got to do."
It's cheaper this way.
It
is. So tell us a little bit. You've talked a little bit about, Brian, tell us a little bit about the formation of the Bouncers and like, how did you guys get together?
So we met each other because Brian started with Ring of Honor 2 years after I did. But Brian had been coming around for years, like doing the extra work and stuff. We just kind of became friends because we had the same interests. Then he did the Top Prospect the year that Josh Woods won. And the company was really impressed with them. And Pants, Todd Sinclair, the referee, him and Brian go way back. Well, he had made a joke. Actually, it was a week after his Top Prospect, we wrestled each other in a match, and Pants was our referee. And during the match, one of us, I forget who, said, "Wouldn't it be funny if they put us together as a tag team, two of the biggest guys in the company?" And all of a sudden, the next day, we both got an email because at the time, Silas and I were looking for a third person for the 6-man titles, and the whole original story was that Brian, Silas and I were never going to have that third guy because nobody likes us. And then they changed it once they heard somebody say something about Brian and I being a tag team. I think it was Pants that said it to the creative. So now it's like, okay, you guys are going to include Brian in your stuff, and then Brian and Bruiser, you're going to split off to be the tag team. Silas, he'll be the singles. And we just clicked right off the bat. We had the same mentality when it comes to putting matches together. We had the same mentality when it comes to character stuff. And I kind of took him under my wing and showed him around the Ring of Honor and how to navigate full-time on the road. And we started having really good matches. And lo and behold, here we are, 4 years later and still tagging.
And that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was just an off-the-cuff remark during a match. And Pants said something to creative, and somebody in creative went, "Oh, my God, this is a great idea." And then we were trying to come up with a name. We're like, well, let's be like the Bouncers, because you either love the Bouncers or you hate the Bouncers when you go to a bar. They're either kicking you out of the bar or they're beating the crap out of somebody and you're watching, enjoying it. And I'm like, and that's how the name the Bouncers came about. And it just kind of fit, and it took a life of its own.
That's so good, man.
Cool, man. So if you had to define what makes professional wrestling awesome, what would you say? Like, to somebody who never really have watched independent wrestling or anything, like, what makes wrestling awesome to you?
I think it's the emotion that goes into wrestling matches, because a wrestling match can do numerous things. I mean, everyone that's ever watched wrestling has a moment that gave them goosebumps.
Yeah.
Has a moment that made them tear up. Has a moment that made them so angry they couldn't see anything else. And there's a moment that makes you laugh. Like you just are nonstop laughing. And that's why it's one of the greatest things in the world, because it's art, it's physical art in front of you, and it draws emotions from you. And I always tell people, like, go to a show and just go, when you go, have an open mind. And if one of those things doesn't happen to you, you're not meant for the wrestling world. But I guarantee something in that list I just gave is going to happen to you. You know, if it's done right, that's what wrestling does, is pull emotion on you. And I always go back to that 7-year-old kid sitting on my chair with the root beer and the popcorn, and here comes Bruiser Brody, you know, and he, to me, is 11 feet tall, and he's hustling, and I'm just like, I'm terrified, but I'm excited, and you know what I mean? And like that, wrestling did that. And like I said, like you yourselves, you can make a list of each one of those moments. Yeah. And list, you know, Undertaker maybe do this, you know, Ric Flair maybe do this, Danhausen maybe do this. And it's like, no matter what generation it is, it gets those emotions out of you.
And that's so true too. I know, you know, for me, when I was a kid, the first house show that I ever went to, like my brother was always, he got to go and I never got to go. And they said, you can't go because you're going to be scared. It's dark. It's dark in there. And I remember going and being terrified, but absolutely loving it. And like, I connect to what you just said. That's so true, that the emotion is there in professional wrestling. And I still feel like every time I watch something, I feel all those emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
it's theater of the mind right in front of you. It's physical. It's, you know, and when you're there live, you can see the sweat flying. You can hear the impact of the ring and the chops and the forearms, and, you know, someone turn around and yelling at you or getting you to clap. Like I always tell people, come to a live event, and you're gonna love it. Like even if it's just a little local indie show that only draws 10 people, there's be one match on that show that's gonna be different than all the rest. It's gonna make you a fan.
Yeah, sometimes those are better than the big shows, you know, because it's the intimacy. You really get to connect with them and feel it, and like that's why I love it, man.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing about independent wrestling now coming back, man. All these shows that are running, I would much rather go spend my money on an independent show than
absolutely
one of the big guys, honestly. So tell us a little bit about your friend Beer Cat.
So we have 5 cats that live in the house, and 3 of them are mine and my wife's. I have one that's Bruiser. He's somewhere around here. He's the most like me. We adopted him. It was after my father-in-law passed away. My wife just wanted to go to the Humane Society because it's technically like a free zoo, because you can go and look at all these animals. And I'm like, all right, no matter what. And I told my kids, no matter what, we're not adopting anything. We already have 2 cats at home. We don't need any more. And the first cat we ever see was this one. It was Bruiser. And he's the way their cage was set up, he was dropping elbows from the top. And like anytime someone would walk away, he'd just go lay down. But then when someone walked back, he'd start jumping and doing all this stuff. I was obsessed with him. I'm like, this is amazing. Like this little guy's going hard, you know? Like he really wants to get adopted. And so I ended up adopting him and pissing off my wife, because she's like, he just said no. You know,
you're the one that said that.
Beer Cat is actually, we call her Baby Boo. She's a big 20-pound cat that loves food. And I took a picture of her one day when she looked really fat to send to somebody, and my daughter saw it, and she goes, that'd be a great t-shirt. So she designed the shirt with Boo wearing the sunglasses with my keg next to it. And I'm like, man, this is great. You know, let's call her Beer Cat. And what we'll do is all the shirts we sell, we'll take part of the proceeds and we'll donate it to the Humane Society.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like we'll make a little bit of money. Pro Wrestling Tees makes a little bit of money, and then the Humane Society makes money. So that's what we've been doing with all those shirts is, you know, and she took off. Like I actually had to do, there was about a month after the shirt was released, I had to do interviews with her sitting in my lap. And she hates me to hell. But it's kind of like, hey, and it's funny too because they start getting more expensive food because their health's getting bad. I'm like, oh, look at this diva having us to get expensive food now. She's all popular and famous, making money.
Hey, you have to sit here because you're the reason we're doing this.
Yeah, right. That's the best,
so
man.
Awesome, man. So you mentioned something earlier that I kind of want to go back to. You said you were dating yourself a little bit. You talked about tape trading.
Yep.
I don't think people realize now how important that was because not to date myself, but there was no internet, back when I was growing up and watching. So like tape trading was a big thing that I didn't really know about until later on. Walk us through, how did you get involved in tape trading and like, what was that like, to be involved in that game?
So for everybody that doesn't know what tape trading is, we used to have VHS tapes, and you would find shows on these VHS tapes and you'd trade them with other people around the country. And that's how you got your matches. It's not like now where you can just click a link and bam, there's a match.
Yep.
And the way that I got into tape trading was because I became obsessed with Bruiser Brody. And I remember looking at one of the old magazines because my parents didn't like me watching wrestling after my brother got hurt of us goofing off. So I used to take I'm a big comic book fan too. So when I go buy my monthly comics, I'd buy all the wrestling magazines and slide them in my comics. And that's how I got them home. On the back of one of the wrestling magazines, it said how you can get tapes. And Bruiser Brody was listed as one of the guys. So I sent out. And I just kind of got to know who to talk to. And I became pen pals. Again, we didn't have email. So you had to actually physically write people.
Yeah.
And I became pen pals with guys in England and Japan and Puerto Rico and here in the States, the East Coast and West Coast. And we just, hey, this match just happened. Does anybody have a copy of it? And you could find out. And that's how I used to get my tapes and stuff. And it was always for that quest to find Brody. But then because of the quest to find Brody, I fell in love with these other guys, and the thing is the guys I was in love with weren't guys that were on the big time. They weren't, Brody only wrestled a handful of times for WWE.
Right.
Yeah.
Foley made his name in Japan. And because of that is how I got in ECW, and ECW was only an East Coast promotion. So in order for us to get it before they went to TNN, you had to get the fan cam videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I always, formed my little collection. And I remember when I moved back home from Missouri, I actually left all my tapes back at the school, and it was 6 full totes of VHS tapes, like the big totes, just full. Because
we called it a word lesson.
DVDs were coming around, the internet was big, so I just donated them to the school because I didn't need them anymore.
That's awesome, man. It's a shame that you lost the tapes, but I'm sure somebody picked those up at the schools. Like, these are learning tools. Like, you're like a teacher in that aspect. So there's that at least, right?
Yeah.
Try to look at the bright side.
Harley never kept up with modern times, so he always had a VCR at the school.
Oh,
I think
love
he still is there to this day.
So
That's great, man.
Trading, yeah. I don't think people realize how important that was to getting, the word out about these guys.
Well, you also got to find, like, not only did you get all the matches and stuff, you found people with like-minded interests that you have.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to be friends with people. I mean, I'm still friends with guys to this day that I began just tape trading. We meet at you're from Chicago, we meet at Gurney Mills.
Yeah.
Our video used to have a tape cart there. So once a month we'd all meet there. 'Cause it's only a 45-minute drive for us, and that's where there'd be about 20 of us, and we just start handing, walk through our videos cart and all that, and and it was to this day I'm still friends with those guys, and we still joke on a little group message and, hey, did you see this happen, and stuff like that.
A lot easier than writing letters. And Six Flags was across the street from Gurney's, so you could always go hit the roller coasters if you were done.
Yeah, we always made a weekend out of it.
That's the way to do it, man.
And I think that's going back to what you said about, why you love professional wrestling, like the emotion, like even the friendships that you build last forever with professional wrestling. I think that's why a lot of people bonded. The guy that I co-host the main show with, that's how we bonded, was over wrestling. I mean, and it's a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
Wrestling fans stuck together, man.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about becoming a professional wrestler and then meeting guys. Like, some of my best friends I met through wrestling. You know, like Malonis. You know, he's my brother, man. Like I at one point in time before the pandemic, I was spending more time with him than I was with my wife and kids. You know, and then Pants is another one. Since I started day one with Ring of Honor, you know, we just became really good friends. Silas Young and I are good friends because we both broke in together. You know, that's 22 years ago, 20 for him. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
that's a friendship, you know, that people, you know, die for.
Yeah,
absolutely,
man. All right, I'm gonna hit you with a couple rapid fire questions. All right. Can or bottle?
I prefer bottle.
There you go. Bud Light, Coors Light.
Coors Light. Bud Light's disgusting. From Milwaukee, man. Come on.
Keg or stock cooler?
What?
A keg or a stocked up cooler?
Oh, that's a good one. Keg.
Nice. IPAs, yes or no?
No. It depends because I'm a big fan of Stone Cold's IPA.
It's good.
Yeah.
I hate IPAs. They taste like shit.
Island, I can't stand it. If it's too hoppy, I can't stand it. But like Stone Cold's IPA is perfect.
Yeah. I didn't even think, honestly, I didn't think it tasted like an IPA. It was more like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't really fit the IPA. So craft or domestic?
Depends. So I like to go to, when I go to these towns, I like to find a local brewery and hit them up and drink all, you know, and do that. So whatever Yingling's classified as is what I'm going to go with. But like, I like doing the if I'm out in a bar, there's not a lot of stuff. I'll drink, you know, Coors Light, or if I can get Yingling, I'll drink that. But
yeah, I
like doing the brewery tours, man. And before everything shut down, we actually had a couple lined up for Brian and I do like autograph signings and stuff at. And I'm just a big fan of visiting the mom and pop breweries and seeing what they got to offer. So I guess you could say craft, but I'm not against domestic. You know, like
I went to Asheville, North Carolina. There's a lot of breweries there. There's a lot of breweries there.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. It's a fun city. Just kind of sticking with that rapid fire. So like, what's some of your passion? Just like shit you enjoy when you're winding down, relaxing. Doesn't have anything to do with wrestling.
I'm a big fan of comic books. I've been a comic book fan since before I was a wrestling fan. I loved all the comics. I love the movies. You know, huge fan. Video games is another one.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of video games. The paranormal. I love anything paranormal, cryptozoological. Mandy Leone and I actually became really good friends with that because she's really into that. And we're actually trying to start up a YouTube page of us. We wanted to do it with the Ring of Honor roster. We would go on like a ghost hunt because we think fans would like that to see all that. But now this is all the way it is. We're hoping that me and her can still do it and have special guests and stuff like that. But I love paranormal stuff, man. Like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm hooked on that. And the last thing's true crime stuff. I've been obsessed with serial killers and like how they act and stuff because, you know, 92 is when Dahmer came out and he was literally 45 minutes or a half hour from my house. I remember just being a kid thinking like, wait, he ate people? Like, why would you do that? You know, like how do you look at somebody and go, oh, they're delicious?
That's right.
And it just kind of got me to that thinking, and that's how I found out about all these other serial killers. And to me, it's not like what they did was great. It's in my head, like, 'cause I don't think that way. It's like, how do you think that way? Like, what is wrong? You know, what is broken?
It's interesting to think was, you know, you don't think like that. So to get
would shorten your circuit, man.
Exactly.
What was it like? And because I was always a big Zodiac fan.
Yeah, who they just caught or identified.
They just identified, which is crazy.
Wild.
In fact, I just got done with that series on Discovery Plus where they talk to the team and they're doing all the investigations and stuff. And like, you know, it's great. And again, like, who thinks of, I'm just gonna walk out tonight and shoot somebody in the head with a 44? You know, like I'm gonna stab him 19 times. Like, it blows my mind. You know, like,
and then
just tell me, hey, we want you to power bomb this guy. I get that. Hey, we're gonna go with this guy's skin. Don't get that.
which is
There's
probably
no gains being Ed Gain, right?
it's probably a good thing that we don't get that. Like that's
Well, yeah. But you know what? That helped me become really good friends with Vincent, Vinny. In fact, when he started coming up with a new character, he called me right away. He's like, "Hey, man, this is the character I want to come up with. Like, what do you think?" And like the two of us kind of sat down, and I mean, he's doing a great job with it now with the Righteous and the whole Manson aspect. But like, it's more than Manson. Like, if you look at his mannerisms and stuff like that, like he takes them like every famous serial killer in the book, you know, and does a great job with that character. And I remember when he there's a young kid that kind of does that around here, and I hooked him up. And the first thing Vincent told him was like, "Hey, you got to go to a place in your head you don't normally go to, so you're gonna need time." And like watching him backstage, Vincent get into that character, he like locks himself away, you know, because you're going to a place in your head that you normal people don't go to, you know what I mean? And then he has this character come out, and I'm so glad it's successful for him, and I'm glad the Righteous is doing really well. And I think they're going to go on to big things, especially with Bray Wyatt being out a free agent. You know, that's just a natural marriage right there.
Beautiful,
100%,
right?
100%. I'd love to see that. So what are there any is there any current product that you consume? Do you watch any of the current product that's out? I know
I try to watch everything, just you know, because I watch the WWE mainly to watch my friends, because I'm friends with a lot of the guys that are on there. You know, Tommaso was at Harley's with me, so I like watching him. War Machine helped me get my job with Ring of Honor, so I like watching them. Carino's been a mentor of mine for years, so I like to see him. Pierce, obviously from this area, and him and I have always been real close, and so I watched for that. AEW, I like watching just to stay up current, to see what the fans are buying and not buying, because wrestling's constantly evolving. You can't just be stuck in one way. And if I want to be relevant in today's wrestling, I got to figure out what the fans are liking and stuff like that. So I try to watch that. New Japan, obviously, I was a big fan when I was a kid, and it never went away. And it's so cool to watch. You know, they got that New Japan Strong now, which is an American talent and stuff like that, which is cool to see. But I miss the old days of like being able to watch Tag League and stuff on, was it Access TV or whatever? It was, you know, so I try to watch that. Just basically trying to catch up with my friends and see what they're all doing and stuff like that. You know, I don't go out of my way to watch it. You know, like I have everything set to record, so maybe someday I'll be sitting down and instead of watching the Osbournes Want to Believe, I watch Dynamite or something, you know, and just check it out. Especially if I hear like a real big match is going on.
Yeah.
You know, I'll try to find something.
That's a fun way to watch wrestling. I mean, you catch up with your friends to see what your friends are doing, and you're still a student of the game. Like you gotta kill two birds just to watch. And
I've numerous times texted some of my buddies saying, "Hey, I'm stealing that."
Yep. Well, what are some of your goals over the next 3 years?
I want to get overseas when the world opens up. I've done a lot. I've basically done everything. When I first started wrestling, I made a bucket list, and after Madison Square Garden, when Ring of Honor wrestled there, that was literally the last thing on my bucket list. So I just sit down again and go, all right, you did all this, now what? You know?
Yeah.
Not a bad problem to have.
No, it's not. It's not. And I, you know, I want to go back overseas. Like I have the urge. I haven't wrestled in England yet. So I want to wrestle in England and Ireland and all that. And I also want to go to an old time pub over there. So
nice,
a pint of lager, as they call it.
Absolutely.
They bring Sasha over here all the time, Sasha Moth Martina, and she'd be like, "Oh, Bruiser, I'd take you this, and you gotta try a true Guinness, and you gotta try a true this." I'm like, "Yeah, like I want to, like, you know." So I've been talking to promoters over there, but with all their restrictions and our restrictions, it's like really hard right now.
Yeah.
But there's irons in the fire, so we'll just have to see what happens with this whole COVID and stuff opening up. You know,
I don't feel like we're far away from it.
I don't think so either. I know a couple guys. Sledge was telling me he's got a UK tour planned in like March, I think he said. And I think Shane Taylor said he's trying to get back over there. So there's hope that it'll open up. It's just, you know, right now, no promoters want to buy you a ticket right now, and then everything gets shut down again over there. You know, and I can't blame them.
Yeah,
No,
it is
absolutely.
a little dicey right now, but I don't think we're far away from
I
another.
think we're closer to it than we were 6 months ago, for sure.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, so fingers crossed, man. We're hoping for it, man. I want you to get that damn that natural Guinness.
And I want to see Sasha again. I miss her, man.
Yeah.
She came over here. It was funny. So the story with her is when she came over originally, they just wanted us to do a segment where we introduce her to the Ring of Honor crowd, and then she was going to do her own thing, and we were going to do our own thing. And they actually had a meeting with us that day. They pulled Brian and I, and they're like, "We're going to get you guys from this comedy duo you guys are doing, the fun-loving guys. We want to make you more violent and more aggressive." We're like, "Okay." So that night we actually wrestle a match where we're real aggressive and we don't do a lot of the ha-ha stuff. So then we filmed the promo with Martina where we welcome her to Ring of Honor. And then Brian hits that line at the end of the promo where he goes, "Wow, what a woman." And as soon as Mandy Leone, she's in charge of all the social media for Ring of Honor, as soon as she posted that, she came to our hotel room and knocked on the door and said, "You guys just beat every single video we have going on right now with views." We're like, "Oh, this is great. Like, awesome. Cool. We help, our whole goal was to help Sasha out. We think we did it." So next day we show up for TV and people come up, "Hey, creative wants to see you guys." And they're telling Brian and then we're like, "Great. What did we do? We're in trouble." We had a meeting with them yesterday. We obviously didn't do what they want. And we show up and there's Sasha sitting there and they're like, "Totally changing directions on you guys. What you guys did last night was Sash with that whole video. We want more of that. That whole thing we told you guys about being more violent and all that, we're getting rid of that. We want more of what you guys did." So we literally just went and filmed like 6 or 7 vignettes because we knew she was only over here for a little bit. And every time we put them out, they got more and more views, more and more views. And we made that whole love triangle thing. And we had this whole thing set up until it was going to build up to where Sasha and I were going to be standing at the altar, and then she's going to fall in love with Brian, a whole big thing. And then the pandemic hit. And we're like, "Oh, man, right when we got the wheels going." And so when we started Happy Hour, our first guest was Sash, and it again drew huge ratings. And it's just like, I miss her. Like, she's so good. She's a great beer drinking, ass kicking girl. Like, what you see is what you get with her. And she fit right in with Brian and I.
That's fantastic, man. Gotta respect that.
Yeah, and she can outdrink most people. Like, she hung in there with us. We in St. Louis, before everything shut down, we had a huge party with the locker room, and the last 4 standing were Brian, me, Sesh, and Jay Briscoe. So that says something about her.
Man, that's tough, man. Well, before we have one more question before we let you go. It's like to end on this question. So the pandemic's over. You're making towns. You can have 3 wrestlers in the car with you, alive or dead. Who's making those towns in that car with you?
Brian Malonis, obviously, he's with me. He's ride or die with me, and he can pick me up when I'm down. I pick him up when he's down, and no matter where we are, we always find a good time.
Hell yeah.
So he's definitely number 1 with me. Harley again, if I can get Harley back.
Yeah.
Just because Harley was great on road trips. I'd always jump in his car. We'd always have a case of beer. Don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
And I remember one time almost falling asleep and getting chopped across the chest. He had these huge gorilla paws. Yeah. But just sharing the road with Harley was great, and learning, and I'm such a student of that. And then see the third one, probably the Briscoe. If I can put the Briscoe brothers together,
yeah, you can do that.
You know what I mean? Because they're since day one, since my day one, they've always taken me under their wing, and we always used to bring a case of beer just for the bouncers and the Briscoes after the match. And it's funny because they'd always, either we'd be on late or they'd be on late. We'd always have to save some.
Yeah.
But just the times I had with those guys, even this last time, my wife was with me. They had their wives, and all 6 of us just and Brian's wife, so all 8 of us sat down and drank and had a good time and laughed and cried. And it was a lot of fun. So I'd put them 2 together. Plus, they know a lot of Jay. is a connoisseur with a lot of Notorious B.I.G. songs where he can sing them word for word.
Oh,
So he's entertaining too.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
absolutely.
I like to think I know some of the lyrics, but I definitely don't know all of them. That's for
No,
sure.
he could carpool karaoke, man. That's what he would do. And it would be, I remember just one day looking at him going, he grew up on a farm in Delaware. Like,
Right. I would pay for some Briscoe Bros carpool karaoke.
oh, it's amazing. It is. They're
That's
just
great,
great
man.
guys.
Oh yeah.
Man, and what a statement that is too about Harley Race. Jumping in the car, I rode with Harley a lot. Like that, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
like to all those young guys listening, you learn more in the car and at the bar than you do actually in the ring. And I used to go to Harley's. He'd get there at 10 a.m. Training wasn't until 5, so I'd show up at 10 a.m. and I'd hang out with him. I'd go have lunch with him. I'd leave the workout at the gym and I'd come back. And I just constantly. And then when it was, okay, we got to drive to this town, I'd jump in the car with Harley and BJ, you know, and any chance I get, if he was at the bar, I'd sit down with him and whoever was with him and just pick his brain. And, you know, I used to do that with Trevor. I'm a fan of Jack and Coke because that's what Trevor drank. So every time we go to a bar after show, I'd buy him a Jack and Coke, sit down and make sure his drink never got empty. And just share stories. And that's how it was with Harley. Just make sure their drink doesn't not get empty.
Yep.
And you learn so much
Yeah.
in that short time period. And that's a lost art nowadays because you don't have to go to, like, people think if you go to a bar, you have to drink. You don't have to. You can go to the bar and just hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be drinking, but the more drinks I get, the more I'm going to talk to you and hopefully you learn a little bit. You know, that's what I did with Harley. That's what I did with a guy like Terry Funk. That's what I did with Trevor, you know. Brian and we did that with the Rock and Roll Express. We did NWA. They're like, hey, we want you to jump in our car. We're like, the hotel's a block away. Why do you have a car? And they're like, we want you to jump in our car. We're like, okay. And so we jump in and we literally said to them, we'll buy the beer and the pizza. You guys just do the rest. And they're like, sure. And we drank a bunch of beer with them. And all they did was talk and share stories and teach us. You know, and now to this day, we still talk to them. In fact, when everything shut down, you know, we reached out to them about NWA.
Yeah.
You know, and you get that because after the shows, you go out, you hang out.
Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome too. Like I know Ricky, he does a lot of around here in West Virginia independently. He's on a lot of shows and he's brought Carrie along with him.
Uh-huh.
And I like what, you know, Carrie's doing a lot of great stuff right now too. So it's just, those guys they seem like they're some of the most genuine people that I've ever talked to in the business.
And they are. And what I like, and this is what I liked about Harley too, is that they're honest with you. If you do something that it looks like shit, they're going to tell you it looks like shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how you get better. Is you don't get better from me telling you everything good you did. You get better by, this is what you did wrong. This is what you need to work on. And that's why I respect those guys, because they didn't care if they hurt your feelings. You know, they cared about the business and they want the business to be better. In order for the business to be better, you have to be better. Yeah. You know, and instead of just blowing you off, they took their time to sit down and talk to you. You know, like, it's awesome. And that's what I want to hopefully do when I go forward, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by. Let everybody know where they can find Bruiser on social media, wherever they can find all your stuff, man.
On Twitter, I'm at BCB Winchester. Instagram, it's Beer City Bruiser. Facebook is Beer City Bruiser. ProWrestlingTees.com/Beer City Bruiser. If you go to Brothers Good Door, it's GADDOR.com. You can buy my wrestling buddy, which is right up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I got a wrestling buddy along with Brian. So hit them up. Cameo, I'm on Cameo too. So it's Beer City Bruiser on Cameo. If you want me to do a video and drink a beer and make fun of you, I can do that.
Love it.
And then I'm back on the indies. So promoters want to hit me up, find me on one of my socials, and let's do business.
Yeah, man, we got to get you down here in West Virginia.
Well, I'm going to be moving to North Carolina in June, so I'll be right around that area.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we got a couple promotions that might be able to hook you up with. That'd be a lot of fun.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome, man. Well, again, we appreciate you stopping by, guys. Make sure you guys follow Bruiser on all the social media, everything that he just gave you. We look forward to seeing you on the indies and seeing you down the road, man. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.